Crumble heads. My name is Devon Porter, and I'm the author of After the Crumble, which is a fiction novel that will be released this coming fall. The title of today's video blog is, Are We Really Running Out of Oil? And I think that is a very important question that our civilization needs to be asking right now. And on the page for the for the book, there's been some discussion about that, and it seems to be a sticking point. So I think it's worthwhile to address it at this point. And what I want to do today is I'm not going to give a bunch of charts and graphs, and I'm not going to throw a bunch of numbers at you, or anything like that. What I want to do is enable you to do your own research and to really, talk about the finer points that you need to understand when looking at this global picture. And I think if we look at it from the big picture, I think a lot of the smaller details will start to make sense. So we start with a comment or, sort of a concept that I think everybody can agree on, which is the fact that oil is a finite resource. We can sort of talk about how much there is left and all of that, but the fact is there's a limited amount. We cannot make it. And of course, the other fact that we know for sure is that the use of fossil fuels does harm the environment. It's been proven time and time again. So that's the one thing that we can all agree on starting out of the gate. So now the question becomes, are we running out? How quickly are we running out? And the real question that everybody really wants to know is, will it affect me? When will the decline in worldwide oil production affect my own life? That's what I think a lot of people are sort of asking. So, if we look at the large crude oil fields, it's fairly clear that they are in decline. And of course, I encourage you to do your own research on that. But there's a difference between the different kinds of oil that we're getting. Of course, there's coal, natural gas, and oil. But when you get to oil, it depends on how you get it as opposed to what you can do with it and how much you need to refine it. So let me introduce the concept of EROI. EROI is energy return on energy invested, and basically that concept is, how hard is it to get it out of the ground? How much resources, how much energy does it cost you to get the oil out of the ground? And of course, discussing EROI, crude oil is a very high return. It doesn't take a lot of effort, and it's a liquid, shoots right out of the ground, and we use it, and we've been using it like mad for the past 100 years. Now we get to fracking, and this is an interesting discussion, and the sort of the social meme right now is, we have so much oil. The U.S., it's a revolution. It's the shale revolution. There was a New York Times article, and there was an article in the Atlantic. I don't have a copy of the Atlantic with me, but I think that the title of the article in the Atlantic was, "We will never run out of oil," and the title of the New York Times article was something like, "The U.S. will surpass Saudi Arabia in oil production by the year 2020." So those have had a big effect on the consciousness of the American, sort of populace. So, but if we look at those articles, and of course I've read them both, many times, and you look at the Atlantic article, and basically if you really strip down what they're saying is, yes, we will never run out of oil, and I agree with that. We never will, because some of the last little bits of oil that are in the ground are in little pockets no bigger than a can of Coke. Like, would you build a drill to get down to a Coke can full of oil? It just doesn't make sense. So what the Atlantic article was really saying is, we'll never run out of oil because some of the oil that's in the ground is impossible to get. And of course, they talked about some great, wonderful new technologies, and I use the air quotes because they're very harmful, these new technologies. So now let's get to fracking, hydraulic fracturing, and they do it for natural gas, and they do it for what they call oil. It's got a much lower EROI. Fracking, it's very difficult, it's very costly energy-wise and capital-wise to build what's needed and to use the energy to actually get that stuff out of the ground. And we look at fracking, we could talk all day long, is fracking going to save us? Is fracking not going to save us when it comes to energy production? But the real question becomes one of the environment. And you go, oh no, we're talking about the oil, we're not talking about the environment. But these two issues are absolutely inextricably intertwined. The oil and the environment are all tied up together. So the concept of fracking is so harmful to the environment that the cost is too high. And again, I encourage you to do your own research as to the effects of that fracking has on the environment. And there's a documentary called Gasland, and if you watch that movie, it makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. What fracking really does, basically it kills the water, it kills the groundwater. Within a 100 miles, a couple 100-mile radius. And when you kill somebody's water, you kill them. When you take away their fresh water supply, you've ultimately either forced them to drive out or you will actually take their life. So the cost becomes too high environmentally for fracking. So what we need to do as a civilization is decide what our relationship with technology is going to be, and in particularly the technology that's very energy intensive. And we need to decide our relationship with the remaining fossil fuels that are on this planet. We need to think about what we need to use these things for and what we don't. Because if we decide that we're going to go pell-mell for the next 20 years and we're going to frack and we're going to get all this stuff and then we're going to keep drilling underneath the water, which of course we saw through the Gulf of Mexico, that's very dangerous too. They killed 80-90% of the life in the Gulf of Mexico with one oil spill. So is the cost worth it? Is it worth it to kill ourselves to get a little bit more energy? Is it worth it to kill ourselves so we can drive our cars a little longer and so we can play with our phones a little bit longer and all that? And of course, I would say no. So, you look at what's going on around the world, and you can sort of see what's happening as the oil starts to decline. And of course, the other thing I encourage you to research is what's called the resource curse. And you look at places like Nigeria where oil has been discovered, and it's actually destroyed those countries. You hear about a lot of the places where violence is taking place in the world right now. And you look at the Ukraine and Afghanistan and Iraq and all these different places. And we all know that oil is involved with that, but there's some places that the news doesn't talk about, and Nigeria is a good example of that. And basically what they're doing in Nigeria is the people are fighting a war against a corporation. They're fighting a war against Shell. Shell's killing their water. It's poisoning their rivers to suck up this oil for the machine, and the Nigerians are getting no benefit out of it. So I encourage you to research that as well, because we really need to understand the full price, not just the actual monetary cost, but the environmental price and the price in human life and animal and plant and fish life. So, again, I would encourage you to research those things on your own and come to your own conclusions. Okay, and if you want to take my word for it, I would say that by about 2017, 2018, I suspect that worldwide oil production will begin to slightly decline, and after that, we will see decline. That's my own belief based on my research. So if we do believe that we're approaching a decline in oil production, and of course the population is continuing to go up, what does that look like? Well, you're seeing it yourself, and a lot of you in your own lives. In the year 2006, how many times did you go out to the movies? How many times did you go out to dinner? How much do you do it now? And if you think about a lot of these little details about how we are having the crumble affect us, it's really starting to become clear. So it's going to look like what it's already starting to look like. A lot of people think gas prices will go up to $10, but I don't think that's the case. I think people will end up driving less and less, and gas prices will hover between $4 and $5 a gallon, and things will just get slower and slower, and people will drive less and less. I think that that's going to be sort of a slow grind, or a crumble, obviously, as I call it. So, and you've heard the phrase the new normal, and that is the crumble. That's exactly what we're looking at. So, and of course, for those of you who watch the other videos, I have a very optimistic outlook about this whole process, and that's inextricably tied to this. This concept is the use of fossil fuels is killing our civilization, and the fact that we're running out is actually good news. It's good news for the environment, and it's good news for our own lives. So, and next week we will talk about, I'll teach you how to raise hogs. So we'll do something optimistic next week, and that'll be fun. But as for now, thank you very much, Crumbleheads. Have a great day.